Morning everyone, this is Mugwort here. It's going to be my first attempt at commentary for the Crazyhouse World Championship 2020, which is underway. It's going to be a very long event lasting approximately 6 to 9 months. This is a round one match we have here between mathace and lawlz. And you can see the ratings here, about 2200 versus 1900. We've had an upset in the first game, so lawlz has taken the first game with the white pieces, and it looks like in the second game mathace is threatening some unstoppable checkmates on a7 and b7, but also his king is in a bit of trouble. The bishop is important to guard g1, where the rook can land, but otherwise it looks like the white king is going to be safe on d2, which means the only possible way to guard a7 and b7 at the same time would be to place the rook on b7. Could probably sack the queen in that case, but he's going for a mate. If he can get the rook on d1, he can promote, I guess. I suppose this does draw the queen back to e2. I still feel like white should have the edge here because of the potential drop on b7. And even if black defends, white can just start putting a pawn. Perhaps black could check with the rook, but there's only one check. And there's lots of blockers for white here. So just put the bishop on c1. Yeah, I think white still has a big edge. So who do we have following this match here? We have Katask, okay, a Legion Destroyer in the game chat. I'm just going to let them know I'm streaming because they might not be able to see it from the game page. So yeah, there's a short delay. I do this for the World Championship matches just because we don't want to allow any possibility for the clumsy commentator or the amazing talent in the chat to influence the game in any way. So queen b5 is made in one for mathace. He's equalized one game all. It's best of 10, 3+2, time control. And I noticed some of the previous matches have been ending after 6-love or 6-1. It's up to the players whether they want to complete the 10 games or whether to stop when somebody reaches 5.5 or 6. So game one, I did catch it very briefly. It was a similar opening, but an early bishop sack on f7. So lawlz has played differently this time. However, this tends to be good for black. Hey, Katask. When black can drop a pawn and then a knight on f3. Hang on, what? Wow, that's very subtle. Why did he play d5? Did he just not expect g takes h3? Or I don't quite understand why he didn't play knight at f3 check. Why is he allowing white to put a pawn back on g2? Oh, what, I don't understand this game at all. I mean, often white will play pawn to f3 just to plug up that square on f3 and allow the rook to possibly defend on f2. Mixu, yeah, hey, good morning, good evening, or whatever it is. So yeah, a bit of a surprise in the first game. It was an early bishop sack on f7. And it was actually quite similar to GSVC versus myself from last year, or 2 years ago rather. And I should announce GSVC is playing a match very soon, in about 45 minutes. So I might stick around for that one too. It's not like I have anywhere to be on a Sunday with the conditions at the moment. So yeah, as expected, there was a quick win for mathace because he was allowed to just bust in via g2 and f3. So lawlz will really need to repair this opening. So again, sort of similar opening to game number 2, where we had this bishop g4. The bishop came back after f3. It's not such a bad opening for black. I mean, it's about as good as any other opening. I'm not sure whether lawlz wants to play I mean, it often ends up a closed position, but white has the option, whether to push d5 or whether to trade or just leave the tension in the center. So I think this is a good response to e5 because then you can see that it's targeting f7. He might want to sack now before castles, or he might want to allow castle, then trade on e5 and stick a pawn back on h6. But the bishop here does allow some counterplay. I think if there is a queen trade after black castles, then white is going to get in first with pawn at h6. So heavy trades do seem to favor white. And if he doesn't castle, of course, he's always got to consider the possibility of a sack on f7. So knight g3, I would assume the knight is headed for either f5 or there could be a pawn at g5 and knight h5 at some stage. I think this is a good idea to block out the bishop on h3. And I don't think pawn at h3, the king's just going to go for a walk and come back and then defend. Alright, so very interesting prophylactic moves, allowing black to castle without this pawn at h6 being a danger. I don't like this with the bishop sitting on b3. I don't like h5 because then the light squeeze are terribly weak. Probably just taken pawn at e6. Hey Pethidine, that's F Gala. Anybody else here? So yeah, as mentioned, if you're following the games on lichess, we have a short delay, just so there's not any realistic possibility of influencing the match. Not that I expect the players to be watching streams while playing anyway. So what's the hesitation on taking f7? Take back, pawn at e6, king back, e takes d7, knight takes. Or do you have a bishop in hand? Yeah, but I mean, as soon as you can take a knight at e6 is so deadly. Not that you want to sack a queen for it, but... GSVC, we've got a match coming up soon. Well, not us, but you've got a match coming up soon, so I might stick around. You can mute me if you don't want to hear my terrible advice. Feel free to mute me when your match starts. Yeah, everyone always smashes each other on my stream, but no, it doesn't work. I don't have any bots activated. So knight d5 is a little bit surprising, but I guess the knight had no other purpose on c3. As long as white doesn't trade two knights, and then there'll be some knight at h4, knight at h3. If desperate, he could run the king back to f2, but... Alright, so h4, h3 I suppose. And here mathace has to decide... Oh, he's not going to mute me. I better give him some misleading advice and throw in some blunders and say, oh yeah, I expect gsvc to sack his queen in this position. I hear your move, so I know what not to play. That's exactly the point, yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, as expected, this was always going to happen. Pawn at e6. It's got to be good for white. You just trade everything, trade queens. If there's a check here, you step back because you can't take the queen back and mate at the same time. Maybe bishop at h3. GSVC would do a move like this. Bishop at h3 for safety. Bishop at b3. Yeah, okay. I think anything wins here for mathace. h4 takes a square away from the knight. Yeah, but I think black was struggling for a plan because one knight wasn't going to do much. He really needed two knights to... Alright, so queen e6, queen f7. Oh, can do it this way. Light square domination. Yeah, bishop h3 all the time for defense. Alright, so we have two... Oh no, it's 3-1 to Matt. How did that happen? I can't count to 4. Have they had 4 games already? Oh yeah, because I only joined after 2 when it was 1-1, and then mathace won a quick one with black. Alright, it's interesting here that mathace is switching the opening because it was obviously very successful in game number 3. But he's going for a funny sort of French with a delayed move order. Yeah, you don't see very often an advanced French where the knight jumps to g4. So it's typical white will castle in response to knight g4. I mean, sometimes you can play h3 and just let black sack the knight on f2 and claim that there's no follow-up because he can't trade lots of pieces. And it often baffles me why white typically moves the bishop to b5, and because after bishop d7, doesn't trading here just activate black's bad French bishop? I never really understand this move in the French, so if one of you guys who has a more subtle understanding of positional concepts can explain why you'd want to play bishop b5, I don't quite get it. I mean, I'd like to play bishop d7 and take back here and then put something on e4 if I was black in this sort of position. I mean, I guess sometimes you can play the knight to h5 and then just sack here, pawn at f6. Yeah, so h3, it's making black sack on f2. He's only got a pawn, so is it worth preserving the knight? Oh, I'm not sure whether I'd let this drop. Probably just let black take on f3 and then go queen takes f3 instead of moving the knight backwards. And there's possibly moves like bishop h4 to come at some point. g3, pawn at e3, or even just push the pawn to e3. Can always trade off another piece here if he needs. It's looking good for black. Bishop c5 is another idea, because white doesn't have a pawn at the moment for e3. So I'd be tossing up between bishop h4 check and bishop c5 if I was black. So who is gsvc? I don't know anything about his opponent. He's playing a guy called Mauriccious. Don't know anything about him. What is he, about 1800, 1700? So of course on lichess, the server was just massively congested with the titled arena going on, and it was the first blitz titled arena that they had, 3+0, and they had something like 950 players. I didn't even know there were that many titled players. 950. Wow. I guess they include CM and NM, but yeah, it must have been really hard even to make the top 50 or top 100. There's so many strong players online. gsvc has been working hard prepping for his opponent. Yeah, I expect to see some novelties, some interesting openings from gsvc today. Is he going to throw in some a5 or a4? Oh no, it was Ray Robson versus Katas from yesterday. They were doing a, what was it, a Scotch or something with a4 and h4 thrown in? Or was it a Petrov? It was a Petrov with h4, h5, a4, a5 thrown in. White Dancing Rockstar, hey! And welcome, guys. So we got 2 matches in a row. So that's actually a good time to stream some Crazyhouse. Mathace currently having a 3-1 lead. Looks good in this position. I'm not quite sure the rook is really the piece that he wants though, because he really needs some diagonals for g3, f2. The queen can come in to defend. So it's not totally overwhelming for black just yet. It looks good. I mean d4 is good to build a pawn chain on e3, but then knight e4 is covering a lot of squares around the king. Perhaps just put a pawn back on h2 for white. And a couple of these games, Mathace is very low on time, only 18 seconds with a 2-second increment. So bishop at g5, the idea is to block out the queen, but yeah, these squares f2, h2 are terribly weak. But on the other hand, if you sack the queen, then the rook defends the first rank. And black would actually much rather a pawn on f2 or h2 than a bishop, because bishops don't promote. Yeah, well, there's no forced mate here. King is safe on e2. Suppose you can just pick up the rook on a1, and black still should have an advantage. I mean, this is the piece holding it all together. The knight on f5 defending against knight at h6. So I wonder about queen takes f5. Is there a forced mate with rook e1, king f3, rook at e3, bishop takes, rook takes, king f4. But then black has a bishop. There's still a queen on f5. But again, if you can't take the queen with check, I don't know, maybe I'm missing a move, but I couldn't see how you're taking the queen back with check, even with the bishop in hand. I guess the bishop, you can put it on h6 to cover the mate threats and then take the queen back. Interesting stuff. So mathace takes it. Again, it's saying f6 instead of queen takes g5, just to pick up the pawn on e5. Okay, so mathace is playing a prophylactic move h3 on move 2. That's funny. To stop this early bishop g4. Didn't like the look of the opening in the previous two games. So mathace is usually pretty heavily booked up, so it's a good idea to throw in something a bit unusual like an early bishop g4. Because then it's more about ideas than specific moves, and computer preparation. It's very unlikely to be heavily prepared against an unusual opening. Of course, unless your opponent plays it all the time. So is this move h3 going to come in handy if black plays some more normal stuff like e takes d4, knight takes, or bishop e7? I guess he'll just find some way to hit the queen. Yeah, Katasa wasn't really watching either how mathace won the last one, but I guess there was some double rook and bishop mating net. Bishop b5 is the obvious move here, because if black doesn't have a knight for h4, then of course there's no pawn at h3 anymore. It looks like you could probably just trade here and pieces will be useful. Pawn at d5 I would do without thinking too much. Yeah, so if mathace is taking his time in the opening, it's a good indication he's out of book. It was funny watching Fabiano in the candidates a couple of days ago, where he had like a minute 41 after 15 moves, playing his novelty. He ended up losing against Ding Liren, but it was funny to watch the clock situation where he was an hour up on the clock and Mr. Ding had to work out everything over the board. Queen c4, so mathace here is trying to stay in the center without retreating. I mean, it's a possible disadvantage that it allows a sack on f2, but you only want to do this if you can follow up with some trades. Of course, you got to defend against queen f7. Yeah, queen e7 runs into a knight at f5, so I guess the point of this move is that black has to defend passively. But on pawn at e6, you would assume a knight sack is good. Even a knight sack on f7 followed by another knight drop on g5. So yeah, I like this move a lot, queen c4. d5 I guess is the other move. Does he have enough defenders? Can we counter 3? Pawn takes, knight takes. Do you then sack on f7? And there is a queen e7 check. Yeah, it's very unusual to have the bishops defending each other like this. Don't know whether I've ever seen that before with the queen on c4. And I'm not sure how I feel about bishop takes first. I'd rather keep the bishop on the board for defense. Yeah, so it's either a sack, maybe a pawn at e6 first. Pawn at e6, because then queen e7 you can just drop another diagonal thing on d7, whichever you feel like. No, d5 hangs too if you ever play queen e7 here. So I'd prefer pawn at e6 to knight takes f7, sack immediately. Alright, this is a bit unexpected. Bishop at g4. So again, Mathace is being rather cautious. He's not just rushing into the sacks on f7 or dropping something immediately on e6. I think there aren't too many moves here for black. He's probably got to play pawn at e6. I don't think the bishop sack is going anywhere. You'd only do this if you could somehow cut the bishop on c1 from defending the knight here, but any queen f6 check, you just block on f3 here. It looks totally safe. So I'd probably go pawn at d7 and then queen takes d5 if I was Mathace. So that's why I thought the only defense was pawn at e6 before. Queen e7 check might slightly slow down white's attack, but yeah, I mean, surely he's just got a sack here. And it's made into with pawn at f7. Alright, so pretty convincing performance there from Mathace. He's taken a 5-1 lead. And after the minor upset in the first game, he's done very well to come back. So this may be the last game. Just again, we have another match coming up shortly with GSVC in about 25 minutes. So I'll find something to do in the meantime if these guys stop. Maybe take a look at the tournament page. I'm just going to revisit the opening. It's quite interesting. Early sack on f2. Yeah, so of course trying to trade as many pieces in open lines as possible. d5, e6, still can't take because of the queen hanging, so... Oh, what? He doesn't have a check. Bishop d2. Now, was that intentional? Was that intentional? Did he have some better way to do this via c takes b7 and bishop b5 check? Maybe pawn at g3 is a forced mate, I'm not quite sure. Too lazy to calculate. Bishop d2, but this can't be good. Bishop c5 check. Oh dear, he's just going to trade the house. Is bishop e3 a forced mate? Or is the king running back to d1? Bishop at c5 check. So what's the idea on king e2? Because if there's a knight check here, the white knight on f3 covers e1. That stops queen e1 and an immediate mate on d1 at least. Do you do something tricky like pawn at d3 to make a hole on c2? I don't know. I don't really see a forced mate at the moment. Perhaps just take back on c6. I guess you could drop the queen somewhere first. Because you don't really want to allow a drop on d7 check, so I would assume mathace is just going to play a check or two and then take back on c6. The bishops keep the black king very safe. Yeah, so Mixer's saying mathace took over 5 games in a row. And she's doing pretty well in this game as well. May have had something more convincing than bishop at c5, but I didn't actually see a force mate earlier. Yeah, just take back on c6 and then ask white how he's going to defend. It's a little bit uncertain what the key squares are to defend. Perhaps play something like bishop at d3 and then king d1, but then black could pick up some more material with knight at g3, so you could play something like bishop at g3 defending f2, but then I'd be interested in sacking the pawn there, then queen at e3, then king back, pawn at c2, knight at b4. Could also start with bishop a6 check. That effectively saves a diagonal piece. So this is an attempt to counterattack and defend some squares at the same time. But now I don't think the king can come back to d1 immediately because of knight at e3 check. So the point is, if the bishop blocks, black will just trade, and then there's a hold on c2. And there's also a nice path over here to safety. Yeah, probably on d8. If ever he runs into a check. If the checks run out, that is. I'm not sure whether he can do it with all checks. We're about to find out. Because after the eventual knight at b4 check, it looks like the king is safe for the moment on c1. Just anticipating the king is going to be taking a sort of N-shaped path. Entire sleeve says castle queenside coming. Yeah, I don't know about that. There'll be an eventual knight takes e5 with a check. I think he might have been half joking though. Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure whether to save the knight for b4 or whether to pick up a rook on h1 with knight at f2 check. Could probably allow this in the short term at least, and then put the king on d8, queen check, bishop blocks, knight take, f takes, queen takes, rook. Another blocker on e8. Seems safe enough. Alright, so I think it is a good idea to just stop any counterplay, and now we're threatening possibly at some point a sack on d2. Are 3 knights enough to mate and 2 pawns? I mean, it feels like it without calculating anything, so he's reinforcing this square in defense. And then you just slow play pawn at d4, pawn at b4. And just take the bishop, should be easily winning. You can start with rook b8 or just knight at a3 check. Yeah, I don't know whether this move helps very much. Because I would really like to keep the diagonal pieces for c2 and b2. So maybe he's intending to sack a queen and then do some knight at c4, but perhaps he's just scrambling because he's only got 6 seconds left and can't really find a direct way to attack, so he's sort of trying to keep safe and leave the option for castling open. But now there's a pawn at b2, so there's no way he can take here. Oh, hang on, he can't do that. Just pawn at b2 should mate. Yeah, with c2 to follow, that's it. No, he's mismated 1. but yeah, it makes no difference. So well done, Mathace. That's a match victory, 6 games to 1. And we'll see if the guys are going to finish off the series, so it's a best of 10. Looks like the rematch offer has been cancelled. So about 15 minutes to go and we're going to see another match. Shall we check out the tournament page? Or actually first what we might do is just going to switch to the browser mode and check out the calendar. So this calendar, which is, I'll put the link in the chat. And the times that are showing, you can see here Sunday 22nd of March. In some places in the world, obviously it's not Sunday yet. But where are we up to? So lawlz versus mathace, this is 9 AM Sunday my time. And you can change, there's a button over here where you can change the time zone. It says here time zone Sydney. You can change that to anywhere in the world you like. So the next match coming up is at, hang on, that's 11 PM GMT time on a Saturday. So that's in about 15 minutes. Mauriccious versus gsvc. gsvc, and we can actually check out and some more upcoming matches here. So when we go to the challenge page, which is the knockout bracket, the double elimination knockout, which I've also posted in the chat. And we can see the scores have already been entered. I'm not sure whether Legion Destroyer has done this already or whether it's automatic. But you can see mathace is in the bracket of the Lone Wolf. So that'll be a big matchup next in round 2. And these guys are also in Jasugi's bracket, who is, of course, the top seed. So assuming Jasugi will defeat the qualifier, Stephanie S. Symphony, he'll be taking on Simba in round 2, which is a very exciting match against Igor Bugmate in round 1. That was from yesterday. And then, yeah, potentially a big matchup between mathace or the Lone Wolf in round 3. So let's see where gsvc is in the bracket. I think he's about seed 5 or 6, something like this. Let's see, who are the big matchups in round 3 or 4? gsvc is in whose bracket? Is he right down the bottom? I haven't found him yet. I'm just making sure you guys can see the right window. Still haven't found him. No, must have missed him. I used Control F. There should only be one GSV. There we go. So the number on the left indicates the seeding, the initial seeding, number 8. And he is in the bracket of Morlock and Fedner. Morlock's already won his first round match. You can see here. Oh, he's possibly playing OK ZH in the next round, round 2, and then CIW or Morlock in round 3 potentially. And for a berth in the candidates, he would be possibly playing Little Plotkin or T-Cubes or EX Mohax in round 4. So it looks like they're the big names on the opposite side of the bracket. In the, is it the quarterfinals when the 16 players left? No, the round of 16. And the quarterfinals, I think, in the winners section is just for a bonus $25 cash, because once there's 8 players left in the winners bracket, those 8 players automatically go to the candidates, and then in the losers bracket, once there are 8 players left, they'll knock each other out for 4 more players in the candidates. So a total of 12. But if you win all your 4 rounds in the winners bracket, there is a bonus of $25. according to JannLee's original post, how the tournament format works. So, no, they haven't played any more matches, right? So, okay, saying it's 4 plus 8. I'm not sure what that means. So, Legion Destroyer is offering a challenge, maybe 1 or 2 games, and we'll go back to the gsvc. Yeah, it's 4 plus 8. I'm not sure what he means. Does he mean 8 plus 4? Okay. Oh, not quite sure exactly what you mean. I just thought all the winners of the round of 16, that's 8, go through in the winners bracket. Oh, maybe it's my misunderstanding. I'm not sure. That's something I have to clarify because I'll put it back on the game display. Let's just pawn at h6. I'm just trying to focus on not announcing the wrong thing with the qualifying. So yeah, it's something I have to clarify, whether you only have to win 4 rounds to go through, or whether the winners have to win 5 rounds, and then it's in that case you'd have to win more in the losers bracket. But yeah, we'll have to go back to the rules if that is still ambiguous, or whether it's clear and maybe I misread it, maybe you misread it. I'm not sure. All right, so what's happening here? Do I want to sack on e4? Maybe knight at h5, then I've got to worry about bishop at g4. Maybe sack on d5, queen takes, and then knight at c3 to follow up. It's either that or sack on e4. I'll go this way. So Mixu seems to be agreeing with me that it's 8 plus 4. And I thought, yeah, the idea of the bonus $25 was if you win that 5th round, but even if you lose, you still go through anyway. That was my understanding. Yeah, just a bonus for being undefeated in the winners section. So if you lose the 4th round, I think that you only need to win 2 more games to go through. Alright, what do we have here? It's either d4, harass the queen, queen takes g7, knight takes e4, or maybe knight f3. Queen takes g7, knight takes e4, queen takes g2. That's... or do I need to open up the bishop on c1? Well, what's more useful? To play knight f3 or d4? I might go d4. Just worried about the rook being trapped on h1 potentially, after the queen follows this sort of path. So knight takes e4 was the idea, and then threaten some knight f6 check if queen g2. Yeah, d4 is also useful to stop things like knight at f4 and knight at d4. So I got 2 pawns for a bishop. And yeah, so it's good to discuss this, because if you don't want to go the whole tournament having a misunderstanding of who qualifies for the candidates. So it is good that we're all on the same page. So I guess Legion's going to find a way to block out the e-file, maybe put a bishop on e6, Bugzilla style, and plug up the e-file as best as he can. I've got to decide, is it worth sacking a pawn here? Bishop takes, knight takes, queen takes. I would have 2 pawns and a bishop, but they're not the pieces I need. I need a knight for f6. Perhaps it's worth slow playing with pawn at g5, just to block out the queen from g2. And then answer knight h4 with some attacking move because the king is safe on d1. Just my initial thoughts. Pawn at d6 is somewhat interesting too. So yeah, if a knight's useful, that means of course it may be hard for him to develop this one or place the knight in hand. Ah, okay, so he's placed it immediately, threatening knight d4, knight f3. What's the idea then? Ah, queen g2. Rook g1, take. I've only got a queen for a blocker, so I think I do need to stop queen takes g2. Unless I just go pawn f6 and be direct. I'm going to go pawn at g5, allow this knight takes d4, and then decide if I want to trade queens with pawn at f6 or no, he's not allowing, so just knight f3. And I got to do something quickly with these 2 pawns in hand. So queen b4 shaky might make me waste a pawn on c3. I don't think I want to play bishop d2. Queen takes b2. Oh, what's this? Bit unexpected. I was just saying I don't want to play bishop takes d2. But I think I will in this case. Now bishop c3 runs into queen takes a1. There's no good blocker here. So I think probably best just to move the rook c1 or rook d1. Maybe rook d1 potential of attacking somewhere on the d file. So yeah, what comes next? It's a good move. Where does the knight go? Is it worth preserving the knight or just leave it? Let's attack instead. Yeah, knight d4, knight at d4 also is not looking too good. Oh, queen takes. Alright, that was just a very bad time scramble mistake. 0.3 seconds left. Ah, he's got bishop h3, and I don't have a good follow-up. Yeah, it's resignable. I'm not sure exactly. I think queen c2 is a good move. I'm not sure whether I had a better option to. He says free bishop. Yeah, I'm not really concentrating very well. I do an anti-theoretical opening. Knight takes, knight at d4. I'll call this the fee-glued variation. He first introduced this in my match 2 years ago in the CWC. So here the main choice is to play e6 or e5. I'm going to go e5. It's probably a little bit more risky than e6. And I can't move the bishop yet. Not easy to find a move. d6, bishop e6. So OK says you have to win 5 in a row to qualify unbeaten. Alright, it's as I said, it's good we're discussing this now because Mixer and myself have had a different interpretation. We're need to quote the exact rules. C6, knight takes, bishop takes, rook takes, c takes d5, e takes d5. What do I have left? Just two knights in hand. Maybe knight at b4, knight at h4. Is that worth a go? Worth sacking on g7? Not. There's a defensive option with knight e6. Not really my style though. I'm going to play c6 just for a laugh. I don't know why it doesn't say Mugwort is streaming on the game chat. Oh, he's going to go rook takes. Okay. He says unbeaten. Now that's interesting. He wants some rook takes and knight at f6. Yeah, probably too late to bail out at this stage. I'm going to go with this. Yeah. Is there anything else I can do except rook takes g8? Probably just got to go with it and king e7. Can take on d5 first, which I was expecting. I guess he's going to come back for d5 later. So, okay, saying he's read the detailed schedule. But yeah, I'll either need a specific quote or I need to reread the same schedule and make sure the wording is not ambiguous. Because I had the impression if you lose in round 4, then you only have to win 2 matches in the losers bracket to make the last 4. But then again, it might be 3, and I might have miscounted again. So I'm going to have to give the queen as well. That's very unfortunate. Knight at b4? Because it means he has to throw the queen after this. Bishop d3, of course I got rook at g1. It does also stop knight takes d5 coming with check. This is a very dodgy game from maybe both of us. Alright, so he's gone for this. Yeah, I'll take there and put the knight back on. I see, yes. Does he have a direct threat, or can I just return the knight to b4? Very uncertain. Maybe knight f4. This is getting a bit too crazy. At least threatening knight at g2. Alright, there's a quote in the chat, but I got 15 seconds. Alright, just leaving the rook here. I could have taken it, I suppose. I don't see any immediate threat with the bishop covering e7. Yeah, if he has a knight in hand, if he can pick up one of these 2 knights, then he'll have some sort of a threat. Alright, do we go knight at g2, but then I don't want to give him a knight, so perhaps I should be just... he's threatening... yeah, I see he's threatening bishop takes f4, almost missed that one. But then I gotta watch out for knight at d5. Maybe I can cover this square... uh-oh. I'm gonna take that one. That was dumb. That was really bad. I should have just covered d5 somehow. Yeah, that was... Okay. I suppose there was a mate after knight f6. Yeah, so shall we just check GSVC? Has he started? Yeah, he started, so I was intending to follow these games. Yep, so well played, Legion. I'm not sure if he's watching. Because I said before, doesn't seem to show Mugwort is streaming. Ah, I know why. I forgot to do something. It's been a while. Because I've been streaming 960 on lichess, so let me just fix up the stream title. Alright, now probably in a short time it should update, I hope. Yeah, so let me just refresh the page again. No, it hasn't noticed Mugwort is streaming, but it might come on in a few seconds. So we have a match between gsvc and Mauriccious. And so maybe if Jan is watching, I'm not sure, because there's an announcement of the stream in the game chat. Just to clarify the rules, because there was some discussion in the chat between Mixu and OK, that if the winners win 4 in a row, do they automatically qualify for the candidates? Because Mixu and I were under the impression that the next match would basically be just for fun, and all 8 winners qualify, and it's for a bonus of $25. And then in the losers bracket, the 8 players would then have to play until there are 4 remaining, and then those 4 make up the last 12. But yeah, if JannLee can qualify this, that would be yeah, a big help to all of us who are a bit confused at the moment, because I don't have the quote in front of me. I think Mixo put it in the chat earlier. So gsvc versus Mauriccious, if you have just joined, it is a best of 10 match of 3+2 Crazyhouse, part of the Crazyhouse World Championship 2020, which has only just started about a week ago. There have been quite a lot of matches played already, and we just have a little bit of a delay just for the integrity of the competition. See, gsvc has made the Irish pawn chain here. I wonder if he's going to go for 4 in a row. Oh yeah, so JannLee's asking what's unclear. Now, probably if we all reread the rules, it would be clear. It's just OK was mentioning he had a different interpretation, that if the winners win 4 matches in a row, then they still have to win a 5th match to qualify. Otherwise, they have to go into the losers bracket and then play some more matches. So JannLee is saying in the chat, if you make it to the final 8 of Group A, then you qualify. Yeah. So that's what I had assumed. That's what Mixu had assumed. But it's definitely good to just repeat this again for the viewers, because some people may have had a different interpretation. So it's, yeah, I'm still not sure what you mean when you say 4+8 or 8+4. I mean, I would word it 8+4, which means that there are 8 in the winners bracket that go through, and 4 in the losers bracket that go through. That I think that makes sense to me. I'm not sure what makes sense to other people, but if you say 4+8, that would mean to me then you have to play more matches in the losers bracket to qualify. But I think it's just semantics at this stage. As long as we know that if you win 4 matches in the Group A, then you qualify in the winners bracket. I think it can't be clearer than that. As described as 4 in Group A, okay, but yeah, I see. But if you win 4 in Group A, then you're qualified anyway, even though you end up in Group B. So what that means is that the 4 remaining in Group A will earn the $25 bonus for being undefeated. And and the other 8 will go through. So yes, Blunderman, there is a loser's bracket. It's a double elimination knockout, which means even if you lose, if you play one of the top scenes and you lose in the first, if you lose the first round or 2 rounds or whatever, you're still in the competition. You just got to scroll down a bit to find your name in the loser's bracket. So that's how it's worded, I think, in the challenge website. Have I still got it in the buffer? I can post it to the chat. Alright, so Mauriccious has lasted so far 23 moves. He doesn't appear to be doing too badly at all. But on the other hand, I mean, GSVC is super safe because he's intending to meet any knight h5 with bishop at g4, I would assume. So reinforcing the knights this way, maybe going for a draw. GSVC might take a draw against Mathace, but probably not against a 16 to 1700 rated player. So yeah, just dropping the bishop on, and eventually GSVC is aiming for some diagonal trades to start piling up more pressure on f3 and h3. So how is he going to get a pawn here for f3? We just start rolling the a pawn down the board. Knight at h4, bishop at h3, take, bishop at f3. And he wants white to defend with a move like knight at e1 or rook g1. Oh, was that a... No, that wasn't a misclick because he was defending the knight, but the main threat seemed to be on the bishop. So yeah, this is going to be too much. The king is forced out. Otherwise, there's not an h3 to finish. So that was the first in a 10-game match of 3+2. GSVC takes the first win. We have a Sicilian. A little bit... I'm just going to refresh the page again to see if I've done something wrong with the stream title. Normally it shows me that... Oh yeah, so it's on the main page, but it doesn't seem to appear for me on the game page. Oh, maybe that's because I'm not one of the players and it's not the arena. So normally when you're in an arena, it will show if you're streaming, and if you're one of the players, it will show that you're streaming, but not if you're a spectator. Alright, so GSVC has just played pretty calmly so far. He's not going for an opening bust. I guess he's trying to argue that the pawn on b4 is a bit misplaced because there are still some holes to cover on c7 and b6. But just keeping his king safe and trying to eventually probe these weaknesses on c7 and b6. So Blunderman, okay, and JannLee in the chat are talking about what happens with the breaks. And yeah, as I was trying to say to GSVC in another stream, or maybe it was on Discord, I thought the intention with the breaks was not to do any sort of, preparation or game analysis or talk to friends or anything like this, but it was just for unexpected interruptions, like if you have to answer a phone call, or there's someone at the door, or there's a flood coming in your door, or there's a health hazard somewhere, an emergency, or you have to go to the bathroom. That I guess that also counts as an emergency. If there's an urgent matter that needs attending to, then yeah, the players can take a short 10-minute break somewhere in the match. But there was a question because there has been 1 or 2 very long matches, including the tie breaks, including a postponed match, which I think ended up as 11-9 or 12-10, something like this. So I'm not sure whether there need to be any rules added, or whether we just leave it to the players to be sensible and say, okay, if the tie break goes for a long time, then let's add a second 10-minute break if needed. But I think that can be worked out by the players. I don't think anyone's going to be too unreasonable if it goes to 10-all. So we have an opening GSVC surprised me with in our match 2 years ago. I don't remember this move, pawn at b4, but oh yeah, I think I played one of the critical lines with pawn at e5. So, delaying development of the f8 bishop, just to try and pressure early along the d file. I'm not sure whether he really wants to play b3 check, and if he thinks it wins a pawn, you know, GSVC is known to grab pawns like this on a2, so yeah, I guess it's not unexpected for him to play b3 check. Perhaps b takes c2, or I suppose it does activate the white queen. Is he going to play pawn at b4, or I'm not entirely sure where this queen is going. Mauriccious seems to have done a good job cutting off a lot of squares along the 5th rank. Queen d5, probably just pawn at c4. Maybe he's calculating queen d5, pawn at c4, knight takes d4, knight takes, queen takes. There's also bishop c4 to consider, and then got to watch out for a sack on f7, because very often you answer bishop c4 with a check, but you see the knight here covers the square e4. So, not sure about this move, knight g1, because now, after the trade of light square bishops, yeah, this bishop is going to be a bit of a monster in this position here. I would imagine GSVC wants to trade a knight for h4 or a pawn for f3. Maybe he's even looking at pushing e3 and queen takes g2. So there seem to be many ideas here for black. And OK's talking in the chat about the Simba match. Something about streaming. Equal could have got plus 15 in the opening, but I was worried one of the players might see that on the stream. So I told Simba not to play the move that lost immediately. And the alternative was still plus 5 against him. Simba had to take a break for dinner. Sorry if I did wrong, but the alternative seemed worse. Well, in my opinion, the alternative is just not to say anything at all to the players. That's my view of how competition works. Maybe that's old school, but in my mind, if there's a match going on, you just don't talk to the players at all. And in my mind, that's just the most sensible thing to do. He thinks he's JannLee right now. What is the lone wolf talking about? Oh, he's given the queen. That's what he's talking about. Okay. I'm not really following the game. But GSVC, I mean, look how safe his king always is. I can't imagine white cracking in here. He's got rid of the bishop there, threatening knight at d3 check. Again, I mean, GSVC, one of his great strengths is to try to force his opponent to defend passively. And he can grab the queen, he can take f2, just so many options here for black. Yeah, Lone Wolf says he's talking about the queen sack. Yeah, just all avenues open for attack for black. Maybe open the d file here with d takes c3. Or just leave the bishop shut in, play d3. So many good ideas. Yeah, Entire Sleeve says that OTB you can talk to assistants in between games. I mean, I'm more thinking about the way chess.com arranges matches like the, what do you call it, the Speed Chess Challenge, where they just do one match continually after another, and there's just no communication at all with the players. In my opinion, that's the best way to do matches, to arrange a tournament online. Queen at b2, checkmate. There we go. Alright, so what's the score? 3-0? So we've got at least 3 games to go. See if we see another Sicilian. I'm not sure whether Mauriccious is still online. It looks like he's dropped out momentarily. Alright, e4, e5. Well, let's see if GSVC is going to go for a main line or throw in something a bit random just for fun. 2 knights defense. It's been a bit trendy lately. Bugzilla's been playing this quite a lot. The finisher also. Yeah, and this knight a5 move included. So d3 here is the safe option for white. And knight takes f7, the more aggressive option. So Entire Sleeve says, what's wrong with getting help in between games? Well, the point is that the games are meant to be continuous. You're not meant to take a pause in between the games to check the engine or check your friend's advice or whatever. Yeah, so knight at f5, pawn at f7. That's what can go wrong in the 2 knights defense if you don't defend accurately. So yeah, just not following the exact moves, but I think bishop c5 is a move for black, but yeah, I just went a little bit fast when I'm trying to follow the chat. So we have a double fianchetto. Again, something a bit random, always good to see. And it's going to make castling a bit awkward now for white because he's going to have to play h3, you would assume at some point, just to neutralize the threats along the diagonal. Ooh, knight d3, a massive threat. Probably just play it anyway, then you're threatening knight at c2 check. So JannLee saying the intent is that one player should not obtain an advantage over another player by having assistance in the match. To me, that's not even a question. And to me, that's just obvious, but it looks like a lot of people have a different opinion. So bishop at e4, just to attack the queen with tempo and then stick the knight back on d3. He's taken a different approach. Bishop at g4. Yeah, of course, knight c2 check is also very appealing for black. Perhaps knight e4 here, just to trade another knight for d3 or c2. Alright, he's going to pick up the rook, or is he intending to sack? Oh, bishop b4, okay. So idea is to clear the e4 square for the black knight from f6. And yeah, make white throw the queen after a sack on f2 eventually. So it doesn't really seem to be a good answer here for Mauriccious because the knight is on pre and it's stopping this knight e4 check. So I don't know. I don't see a reasonable option here. Guess he has to block the bishop, pawn at c3. And then what is GSVC's intention? Pawn at g5. So just knight at e4 check. Yeah, same sort of ideas. He can choose which pawn to grab next. Probably just knight takes e3 is coming. And yeah, this game should be over soon. Yeah, so okay, saying he thinks it's obvious but not a rule. I asked Fishy to make it a rule last CWC, which was, he's probably talking about 2 years ago, but the chess players protested. Yes, as they would. Yeah, I mean, of course you can't stop people looking at engine after the game to see where they went wrong, but if the games are meant to be continuous, then the idea to me is that you don't have time to do that. And also then, it's clear that the players know that they're willfully breaking the rules. And of course, you can also get assistance during the game with an engine, but then you're also knowing that you're willfully breaking the rules. Yeah, I mean, JannLee seems to be agreeing in the chat. We can't stop people cheating in real time, but we can let them know that it's wrong. I mean, as an organizer, that's all you can do. Oh, h6, very painful. Not only the rook on h1, but more to the point. The bishop from c1 is coming in. Yeah, so was this another Sicilian? Oh, it was what do you call it? A hyper-accelerated dragon with 2g6. Black offers a draw. Yeah, this is the last. This is the last game if GSVC wins or draws. So, preserving his rating points, he's going to play on for the win. It does look like it's a mate in 3. And we'll see if Mauriccious feels like continuing or whether that's going to be it for today. Well, not today. I mean, there's another match coming up in a couple of hours, I think. Looks like they're going again. So it could potentially be another 4 games. d4. I haven't seen any d4s today. So what's been the closest match so far? Jisugi is asking in the game chat. It's up to the players. I mean, I think that either player can stop after someone reaches 5.5 or 6, or if they both want to go up to 10, that's fine too. Better for the spectators. So what's been the closest match so far in round 1? Have there been any? Of course, I mentioned the tiebreaks before. There were some very long tiebreakers. But of course, with the way the pairings are set up, you are going to get some very close first round matches, because the way the pairings are done, seed number 64 plays seed number 65, and it just spreads out from that. So in the middle, we're going to see some very tight matches between 2150 rated players or so. And then it's just going to go up from there. Like in round 2, we're going to see the 2300s battle each other. Qatar saying in the game chat, your first ob Jisugi's in the chat, in the game chat. That would be Stephanie S. Symphony. Kato says I'd resign the match at 0-9. Simba match was 10-8 says okay, yeah. Yeah, I did catch some of that, and that was a very interesting match, very exciting to watch. Because I think I was in the game chat or one of the streams, Clearcast stream. Maybe I was was following, and Simba was struggling to get through. Who was his opponent? Oh, it was Eagle Bugmate, wasn't it? I mentioned it before. But I tend to have a very short memory when I'm streaming, when I'm trying to follow different things at once. Alright, is that going to be at 7-0, or has Mauriccious decided to take his break now? That might be it for now. Shall we check out the upcoming matches? So the way I've done this is to switch the display so that you can see more of the screen. So Sydney time, this is 10 AM start. It's now about 10:30. And yeah, Katas saying 10-8 was very stressful. It's always good to watch those middle matches, so where the ratings are very close, because yeah, you don't really call it a big upset if a 2100 beats a 2150 or a 2200, but always interesting to follow. So the next match according to the schedule is 2 PM Sydney time, which would be 3 AM Sunday morning UTC, between, how do I say this, Shabrat versus Jasonic. And that does seem to me like a pretty close match, maybe 2100s or so, or between 2000 and 2150. And we've got some matches early Monday morning, which is Sunday night UTC, as you can see on the screen. Pawn in Training versus Lucas Schagt might be an interesting match to follow. I think my school class on Monday morning has actually been cancelled, so like I was saying in the Discord, life is cancelled, but the Crazyhouse World Championship continues. It's about one of the safest things you can do at the moment, to either play in it or follow it online. So yeah, Pawn in Training is a very solid player, 22 to 2300 or so. Always a tough opponent, especially when he's got the white pieces with his system-based openings, d4, g3, or just d4, knight f3, bishop f4. So I'm expecting him to be very, very hard to break down when his opponents have the black pieces. And also, I think these positional plays do very well in over 10 game matches, because of course half their games are going to be with the white pieces, and they're just going to do the same sort of system-based openings every time. Mix is saying, can we get Mugwort predictions of these 50 to 64, board 50 to 64 matches? So he's got a link to the it's an image link. What does the image point to? But I've got the challenge website here that you can see. Again, it's saying Mugwort. Should we congratulate Jenna for winning the match 7-0? There were comments from the Wolf that you were trying to do a JannLee with the queen sack in the Scandinavian game, but it all looked pretty solid. Pretty hard for white to break through anywhere. So it's an image link. But I see. Hang on, how do you get to predictions? Or maybe I should just look for the 50 to 64 while I'm here on the stream. Alright, so obviously that's one, Simba defeating Igor 10-8. And the winner goes on to play Jisugi, you would assume, of course. And then, yeah, as I mentioned before, the Lone Wolf and the mathace would be the next match. So just coming down a bit further, do we have any tight matches? Oh, so Shabrat and Jasonic is not so close, but still I think it would be interesting to follow. Anytime you see a rating difference of about 200 or 300 or less, then you'd expect it to be a reasonably close match. If you're not willing to sack your queen for dubious reasons, don't play Scandi. Yeah, I remember that game from 2 years ago where GSVC sacked the queen. Was it on f2, and then he followed up with some knight at e4 check? Or or was it a sack on c3? And I thought I was busted, but then when I checked it later, I realized it's actually okay for white. It's like still like +2 or +3 or something. But the thing is, when you're caught out in an opening and your opponent's playing very quickly, there's always some self-doubt. Think, oh no, I'm just busted here. But it turned out to be not too bad at all. I think that was the game where I chased GSVC's king all around the board and I ended up missing lots of mates. That was a very funny game. So AK's match is also pretty close. Oh, some predictions. Okay, so let's go with the 50 to 64 boards. So this is one of them. OK versus random 1004. Now that's a bit difficult because I don't know who random 1004 is. Some random dude on the internet. Shall we just pluck some random numbers out of the air for the people I don't know? All right, so OK is going to take this one. I'll say 7-3. OK wins 7-3. Oh, but then he's got to play GSVC. Oh, he's OK going to take a game off GSVC. Not easy to do. He's such a solid player. Like even when you have an advantage, it's like when you're playing Jasugi. Like even if you're +4 out of the opening, like Jasugi's just the best player at coming back and just finding resources and tricks and attacking you from all angles. And it's just so hard to finish off a game, even when you have a good position or a good opening. Let's go down a bit further in the brackets. Dampu versus Medved. Again, I mean, I don't know a lot about these players. I played Dampu a couple of times blind, I think. Mugwort blind. You can make your own bracket. Mugwort? What is Gatas saying? How do I get rid of this highlight from GSVC? I saw his message. You can make your own bracket. What do you mean you can make your own bracket? I'm not sure what he means you can make your own bracket. Yeah, so Dampu, I think he's another D4 player again. I tend to favor the D4 players in matches like this, so I can only base it on the rating. 7-3 over Medved. Any other? Well, there should be lots more close matches. Bayo Miller, I think he's a Nigerian player versus J Biggis. I have played J Biggis a few times. He's one of the guys I always seem to be black against, playing in the arenas. I think he's talking about some fantasy prediction website. You can submit your predictions. Okay. No, I don't think I'm going to do that right now, but I'll just call it out. I don't know. Should we predict a tiebreak with this one? What about... do you predict the exact score? Or do you just predict the winner? Let's say 7-5. Is that legal? 7-5? Yeah. And JannLee says he's playing Jasugi. Maybe we'll follow these games in just a second. We'll just quickly go through any more tight matches. Variant Bunny, I thought that would be a close match against Blunderman. And that's why Blunderman earlier was talking about, the losers bracket, and it still exists. So that means you're still in the competition even after you lose in the winners bracket here. So I did see a couple of games. Variant Bunny, actually very convincing performance. I don't know a lot about this player. Apparently she streams with an avatar and no sound, so I mean that doesn't really mean anything to me, but a very unknown player, Variant Bunny, but played extraordinarily well in those matches. I do recommend you check those games out. Duvid, this is my bracket here, Duvid and Dark Affliction. Now someone said the Dark Affliction was another female player. I'm not sure who it was, but again, someone I don't know anything about. Duvid I played a few times in both 960 and in regular Crazyhouse. But Duvid is very hot and cold, so he can either play really well or you know, makes some mistakes. I guess like everyone, but because he's mainly he prefers to play bullet, and by his own admission has very short attention when he's playing the longer game. So I don't know. Should I be controversial? So let's say, I don't know. Let's say an upset, 6-4 to Dark Affliction. I don't know. This is another very close one. EFLC. Is that the Norwegian player? Yeah, if I don't have their profiles, I'm just going on memory. Of course, the Bay Area. I don't know. 6-4 in favor of EFLC. That's just a bit random, these predictions. Any others? Wannabe versus Mentoring. Yeah, 7-3 in favor of Wannabe. A lot of these players I don't know very well. Oh, the Octopus. Ottokolobus versus Yamut. Oh, someone said something about Yamut in the chat. Was that Katask? D4 is dishonorable in Crazyhouse. Yes, but there's a player in my bracket. Where is he? Die Blaue Sau? D. Yeah, according to Fumitox, calls him D. Where is he in the bracket? He's up here somewhere. Yeah, he's a D4 player, Die Blaue Sau, so I might be facing one of those guys. Anyway, where were we? I see Bugzilla in the same bracket as the finisher. That'll be... Hopefully we'll get to see that for the spot in the candidates in round 4. I just lost the place where we're up to. I think we were down a bit further, weren't we? Oh yeah, this one, Yamut. So I'm just going to jump up to the chat because I thought someone was talking about Yamut in the chat. Is it a different Yamut to the Bughouse player? I thought that was Hi Dude. I can't find it anymore. But it could be a close match. But is this a Russian guy or Ottokolobus? Oh, let's say 7-3 in favor of the Russian here. Any other close matches I missed? Oh, Metin46, the Turkish professional player. I think he's played just about more than anyone else on the server. Always in the arenas, plays like 100+ games a day. Always plays the same openings, even when they're dubious. E4, E5 specialist. Oh, I don't know. It's just a random prediction. 6-4 Markov chains. Don't know a lot about this guy. Fishy Vishy. Okay. I don't know whether Fishy Vishy's played a lot of Crazyhouse lately. I don't know. Let's say 7-5 in favor of Fishy to get through. But anything could happen there. Cross online. Rec and Flourish. I don't know. It's another one. Could go either way. Should we say a bit of an upset? Minor upset. 6-4 Flourish. And yeah, I mean, this could potentially be tied, but I think Pawn in Training is going to take this one 7 games to 3. And Zek is an unknown. I mean, apparently he's one of the old school players from years ago, but I really don't know anything about Zek. Whose bracket is he in? So Freebie and Dubby. Yeah, well, it remains to be seen, but it's interesting to see how far Zek will go. Our Turkmen player is an IM, so where was he? Okay, so it's... Sometimes these title players can be underrated, sometimes they can be overrated. It really depends on if they have a tactical style or how much they know about like throwing certain positional concepts out the window in Crazyhouse, like, you know, pawn structure and weaknesses, and when they apply and when they don't apply, and pass pawns and pawn drops on the 7th rank, stuff like this. Initiative, of course. Yeah, it's a high unknown factor with the title players. Sometimes they can be really strong even with no Crazyhouse experience. So Eldababa has improved a lot. I see he studies the game, he watches streams, he's playing quite a lot. Eldababa is another unknown. Caragialis, where are they? Oh, here. So Caragialis is one of those funny players who plays sort of random stuff. It's really hard one to predict, this one. I'll say Eldababa in a minor upset. You could say 7-3, but again, that's highly unknown. Hard to predict. And these ratings, of course, are based on half current rating and half old rating, and then that depends on whether you used to play like 3 or 4 years ago when there was a lot of inflation. Well, I mean, you could say it from the other hand that now there's been a lot of deflation on the server because the ratings are coming closer and closer together. And you don't see any players rated 3,000 or 3,200 anymore. All right, see if we can follow any other games going on. What's on lichess TV? Jasugi and Jan. So let's follow Jasugi. All right, do we have the right view? All right, it's not the what do you call it? The Crazyhouse World Championship. So let's actually, no, my face is in the way there. Maybe I could just move my face to the other side. There we go. So we can still see the pieces. So what are they playing? Just 1+0 casual. So they're not doing specific training for Jasugi 3+2. I'm not sure if he's going to need it in round 1, but maybe against the Lone Wolf if he qualifies. It'll be interesting to see that matchup and see if Jasugi finds some unusual ways to prevent the Wolf defense or to play something to throw Wolf out of his usual openings. So what's the score so far? So they played 5 games, a 1-0, 4-1 to Jasugi. Kind of him to not turn his stream on while you're live. Who's he talking about? Oh, you mean JannLee? Turn his stream on? I think he said something before about not being able to stream right now. Anyway, but I've been kind of 1/3 following the games and 1/3 following the chat and 1/3 trying to follow the rules and the competition format and the pairings, and yeah, I find it hard to multitask at the best of times. So that's why I think when I play games when I'm streaming, I do lose a lot of focus. So unless they're really slow games, like in the 960 league, it's 5+5, which is kind of manageable, I guess, for me while streaming, and because I'm not a bullet player anyway, that's why. I think playing 3+2 while streaming is effectively like playing 1+1 or 1+0 for me. So yeah, in the CWC, in case you're wondering, I'll do a recording like I did 2 years ago and then do some post-game commentary and analysis, but I'm not going to do live streaming while playing because I can lose to anyone. I have that very special ability. I can actually lose to anyone, including 2,000 or 2,100 rated players. So I suppose statistically, I really should win a 10-game match against anyone under 2,300 or so, or 2,400. But no, I do have that ability to be able to lose to anyone. But my specialty has been really in a Swiss format where there's just been one single game against some of the stronger players, because yeah, I'm not sure why. Maybe that's just my lack of adaptability in a 10-game match where I'm a bit stubborn playing trying to play the same openings, and if something goes wrong, instead of switching, I'll just try and bash my head against a brick wall. But Yeah, I think, yeah, a mix is saying better not to stream your own matches. But I think for my style and my strengths and weaknesses, I think the Swiss style really does work. And of course, in the last 2 years, everyone's been improving. So that's not to say I'd still, win prizes like I did a couple of years ago in the Swiss tournaments. But like Oppa, for instance, you consider how much he's improved over the last 2 years. It's just been massive leaps and bounds, gone from 2500 or 2550 up to 27 or 2800 strength. Better GSVC. Better not to stream your own matches unless you play GSVC. Yeah, because then actually I did pretty well in a couple of individual arena games against GSVC, but the games tend to go with the white pieces, or maybe he was playing blind on his blind account. A couple of times where he's played the perk defense, G6, D6, I found some nice busts in the opening. But then he's crushed me with A4 occasionally, so it goes both ways. You should stream with no delay, but GSVC, don't you find that confusing? I mean, when I suggest just ridiculous sacks for no reason, and then anti-positional moves and king walks, don't you just find that more confusing when you're listening to me when I'm streaming? Alright, so how to kill this knight on d3? So of course, key square to defend here is f2, but JannLee's making it very difficult to get into this d3 square. Any other ideas? So he could eventually go in via d3, but Jan has been trying as hard as he can to reinforce. Alright, so Jusugi's found a nice pawn thrust, making a weakness on f4, covering the square. Bishop at e2, take. Trying to distract the bishop away from d4, but Jan's not buying it. I was half expecting a queen sack, but I guess there's not enough pieces. Here we go. So Jan should take this one on the board, but there's always the flag in 1-0. Is there a mate with knight? Oh, knight takes, and bishop at d7 was a mate in 4. Yeah, he's found it now. That's it. Oh, mate in 3 with the pawn at c7. That's it. Alright, so still 6-2 in favor of Jusugi in this friendly match. So, of course, I might just change the stream title so people don't get it confused and we don't get a lot of people spamming the chat with, is it CWC? I've forgotten how to do this again. Alright, so should we call it not the CWC? JannLee versus Jusugi. Crazyhouse on lichess.org. Here we go. Alright, so what's been happening in this game? And yeah, I wish there was some way in Twitch to, like when the CWC match ends, to shorten the delay so it's more live commentary and end the delay, but I don't think that's possible. I don't really want to end the stream and start again. Oh, idiot, I missed knight g3, says Jusugi. Is he talking about before knight at... No, I'm not quite sure. Also trying to follow the game chat at the same time. You can see this now over on the left-hand side. So knight g3 can't take because the queen takes f3 check. Pawn at d2, is it enough? So he has to get rid of the threat first. Oh, just covering e7. I don't feel like this should be enough for white. Oh, he's gone for the flag. So what happened? Bishop at e8. Was there some more checks coming? Not quite sure. So we have a, what do you call this? An e-calf opening, isn't it? I've seen JannLee and e-calf play this sort of position before with the double bishop e2, bishop e7. E-calf, more known as the Bughouse player, but he does dabble in Crazyhouse from time to time. Of course, he made the candidates a few years ago. I think it might have been 3 years ago. But I haven't seen him active on lichess for quite a long time. Alright, how's Jan going to get a heavy? More to the point, how's Jasugi going to defend all his pawns? And you can see the time difference indicates that Jasugi's struggling a little bit for a plan, so he's hoping to do some magic with his knights. Let's see if he has a good idea. Does this clear the e5 square? I think still should be enough defense on f3. Yeah, so entire sleeve saying with mods or Nightbot you can do apostrophe title in the chat. Oh yeah, Ikaf was asking on Fix as Mixu for a partner on Discord. So was there anyone else on Fix Mixu playing Bughouse? 7-3 in favor of Jasugi. What's happened? They've aborted. Someone has to go. Yeah, Jasugi 12-10. Cheesy bread. I think that's common knowledge. No secrets. Oh, they're doing rated. Okay. I think they're just going to go back and forwards here. Because you often find... Katas says, I'm cheesy bread. You often find... See, even if someone wins a series 7-3, and if the 3 games come towards the end of the series, then the ratings end up evening up anyway. It's actually hard to win points in a series like this. Even if statistically you're the player that wins more. Alright, so castling, usually a good response against this sort of knight at g4. Rook at g8, you have to wonder if it's going to play any more part in the game. Because often when you see moves like rook at g8 without castling, then f7 is the target square. I think we saw that in the first match today, not the GSVC match, but the match before. I've forgotten already. Like I said, I have a 5-second memory when I'm streaming, so whatever the first match was we followed today. I got a warning, server not responding. Alright. Thanks for the warning, chat, but I don't know what that means. Genna says, never mind, I'm not cheesy bread. But isn't everyone GSVC on Discord? Isn't everyone in GSVC's team? They didn't end up playing. Oh, he's talking about Bughouse. Alright, the 2 knights defense. Here we go. I wonder if we're going to see a knight e5, knight d4. So Master Tan's played this quite a bit with knight d4. I think the finisher prefers knight a5. I haven't seen the finisher play knight d4 before. It's also a specialty of... What's the name of that player? He's got a Greek name. He's around 2150. Maybe you can help me in the chat. Chess. Is it Skefter He has some good opening traps with knight d4. I lost to him from the white side when he's played knight d4. He's a guy who makes up his own openings, and they're often, queen d3, d4, queen d3. So he finds new moves on move 2. He does the bishop d6 in e4, e5. No, not Karagialis, the other guy, Skefter. Oh yeah, of course. Caragialis is the other guy that makes up random openings too. I had some funny games playing blind against him. With his anti-blindfold strategy. Yeah, Skeftimulus. Kotas says he knows Crazyhouse theory, so he's not cheesy bread. Alright, so what's just happened? They've traded 2 games each. Oh no. Oh, 1 game each since last time I was actually following the games. Maybe we should follow the games a bit more. So we see a poke defense with bishop c4 and castles. Not entirely sure about this bishop c4. It works in some positions and it doesn't work in other positions. And sometimes you can sack the bishop and sack the knight, or play pawn at f5 to bust a hole on g6. I mean, I'm pretty much only interested in the piece sack lines with white. Because when you see, for instance, Yasser play against Jan in this sort of position, it's one of those, you know, h3, bishop e3, queen d2, maybe castle kingside, maybe castle queenside. They're not going to trade pieces for the first 10 moves. You see a very different sort of a game than when Jasugi is playing. Alright, so how does he defend e7? He's also got to watch the hole on g6. Does he just go straight in with pawn at g6? Is it enough? Knight comes back to f4. Bishop c4 looks like a good move. What about some king move? King e8 I was expecting. Alright, so gonna pick up some material. Doesn't seem to be any direct threats, but also helps to defend some key squares around the white king. So knight at f3, the counter-attacking idea. Oh, hang on. He's blocked out the bishop with pawn at g4. Jasugi's not noticed. So all of a sudden, there was a big turnaround because it looked like Jasugi was safe. He had the knight on f4, he had the queen on g7 defending, the bishop on h5, and they were all blocked out at the same time. Alright, so what's happened here? Knight d4 castles. It's a bit unusual. And from my understanding, if you don't play the critical c3, black is basically fine out of the opening. And I mean, maybe white is nominally better or a touch better, but black gets quite a decent game with this knight d4 if you don't play the absolute most critical lines. Alright, so knight d4 is going to hesitate because it does leave a hole on e2. So, how to proceed? Bishop takes. Okay, pawn at g7. Both sides just covering up their respective weaknesses. I was half expecting knight f5. No. Probably just bishop at e7 or bishop at e5. And so he's intending to meet pawn here with bishop at e3 check. Yeah, I was expecting this king h1 move. It's something JannLee would do as a prophylaxis against bishop at e3 check. Yeah, so Jan is going to need a knight for a counterattack at some stage. Here we go, but he's gone the more direct approach rather than taking the queen. How does Jasugi defend? Wow, what's this queen at g1? Ah, there's knight at f2. Was he mating after king takes g1? Possibly. I couldn't quite see it, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a force mate. Alright, we've got a bit of theory here. Kutaska and Mixu would be happy. Oh no, what's this? Not trading queens. Queen at g3. Alright, is there a queen at b4 check? Or, doesn't look like anything special for for black. Knight takes h3, pawn g2, knight f4. Yeah, I didn't see it all the way to the end. I was assuming there was something like that. Yeah, I'm not so sure if the queen is so good on a1, but this knight may get in the way of an attack. So Jasugi's hoping to trade rooks at some point and then go rook at d8 check. That's his main idea, it looks like, in this sort of position. So here we go, he's threatening rook at d8 check. Uh-oh. King e7 is possible. And then blocker on f6. Yeah, but knight at f5 check and pawn at d5, opening the e5 with a double check. Should be enough. So yeah, the key move was removing the defender of f5 with knight takes e6 check. Otherwise, king e7 was a clever defense. Alright, so where does the bishop belong here? It's got a lot of options. Bishop d6. Castle. Bishop g4, I guess. It looks something like Katas would enjoy with the black pieces. I've seen Katas versus Jasugi games which are kind of similar to this. Alright, so here is Jasugi's making more of an effort to undermine the f3 weakness. And the queen is the essential defender here to stop knight at f6 check. Yeah, I mean, some of my kids at schools, they think a deflection works where you sack the queen and then there's a queen takes and then you can drop the knight at f6, but that's not how a deflection works. Because you actually need to drive the queen away from the diagonal. So even two knights in hand don't really help. Yeah, so I didn't quite see it. I lost my attention for the moment, but it looks like a very strong attack there from Jasugi. Chasing the king out, picking up a rook for d2. Alright, so we get an unusual queen e6 check opening. Knight ge2. I suppose at some point the knight wants to come to f4, but I'm going to figure out a way to to block up the e-file first. There's a lot of tempi here on the queen. Trading queens. Alright. Queen at b5. I can't really see the point. Queen at c6. Oh yeah. So he's got these squares well covered. So this also comes with tempo. I was actually... Oh no, knight takes b5 is not possible because of d1. Yeah, so we see a lot of moves with tempo here. Just picking up an extra pawn, taking back on g4. And I guess bishop at d1. No, knight at e3. Oh, another move with tempo. Pawn at f7, king d8. Yeah, so there's just going to be too much material for white, no counterattack, and too many passive pieces for black. Yeah, very, very strong game from Jasugi. 12 games to 5, he's taken 4 in a row. Rook c8. Oh, it seems to be a good chess move in d4, d5 when you've gone c takes d6 like this. He doesn't have a pawn for g4, so... Whoa, queen takes. Bit unexpected, I guess queen g5 is the idea. He's hesitating. It's an unusual moment to hesitate in 1-0. Wow, queen takes bishop. What is it? Was there something wrong with queen takes? He was worried about bishop takes c8 maybe? And then rook at g4 or something. Oh, okay, king h1. Still, you need to knock the knight away. Or you might play pawn at g2 anyway. Ah, slow build up. Yeah, this is very, very effective attacking play from Jasugi. Yeah, just a nice slow build up. He'll end up winning back all the sacrifice material. And of course, he doesn't really want the knight on g2, but if there's no counterattack, you know, Jan's going to have to drop a queen in defense or a rook in g1. And he'll find a way to extract the knight out of the way eventually. Yeah, just bring it back, make white sack the queen. I'm sure Jan won't have any hesitation in sacking the queen. So he's gone for a counterattack instead. King looks pretty safe on h7 to me. Yeah, so Jan's trying for multi-purpose moves where he's defending and attacking at the same time, but yeah, Jasugi does look very safe. It's just going to be a flag race with checks. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see a mate. That's my prediction. No mate. Oh, hang on. All right, I'll take that back. He's lost the checks. Oh, Jasugi flags. Okay, my original prediction was right. We're not going to see a mate, but I think Jasugi will be kicking himself when he had the pawn on h2 and the rook on g1. He couldn't finish it off. Showing says, "Oh hell yes, today's been chess heaven." Yeah, so much action today. I guess it's a Saturday night in most people's time. So a 3-hour titled arena with something crazy like 950 players taking part, including Magnus Carlsen, Ali Reza, Andrew Tang, many other big name players and streamers as well. I think GSVC and Jasugi were also taking part. And we end with an unexpected bonus here at Jasugi versus JannLee, 1-0. So we also saw two Crazyhouse World Championship matches between... Alright, I will think this time. Who was the first match against? I have to double check my notes. No, I'll remember in a second. I have trouble accessing my memory at this point in time while I'm following another game. So we had GSVC versus Mauriccious, which was 7-0. It's an unusual score line for a 10-game match, 7-0. And we had a match before between... I'm gonna have to cheat and look up the. Who was the match between? It's between like 2100 or so rated players. Oh no, it was mathace, of course, 2200 versus 1900. Mathace took down his opponent 6-1. It'll come to me in a second. Who was his opponent? It was mathace versus someone rated about 1900. No, I'm going to have to cheat. Sorry. It was lawlz, that's right. It's not an easy name that rolls on top of the tongue, off the tongue, you know. Mathace versus lawlz. And when I started streaming, I think lawlz had taken the first game. And it looked to be a really close match, because he played extremely well in the first game with his early GSVC style bishop takes f7 sack. But yeah, mathace did very well to bounce back 6-1. Alright, so we have a very funny pawn diagonal chain here. Pawn on e5 all the way to the bishop on b2. It's a little bit unclear if this rook will ever be captured for rook at c1 checkmate. Because the pieces are kind of holding each other off at the moment. So he's found a new way to break through. The queen takes, very nice move, knight takes d3. It looks like it will be decisive. So desperation here, knight h6, but I don't really see how this changes anything. So Mixu's giving some results in the titled arena earlier today. So Fumitok's 87th, Jusugi 93rd, GSVC 99th, Bugzilla 158th, Chicken 313th out of 313th. Yeah, it's a TH. Oh. Anyway, I focus on details too much, Mixu. Out of 942 players, 330, because he wrote RD, 330, I can't say it, 313 Rd. That's what he wrote. So do you count Penguin as a Crazyhouse player? I mean, he's in the CWC. He must have come in the top 10. What did he come, like 4th or 5th? I would expect something like this. Yeah, what do we have here? 3 knights versus 3 bishops. Don't really know whether the knight wants to take the bishop just yet. But bishop on a3 is very well placed. And now it's a good time to drop, and bishop at e5. So sack the queen, find a way to get rid of the bishop here. Yeah, good move, queen e2 to stop bishop at e3 check, picking up the knight on f4. Of course you can't take this back, just too much material with lots of pressure on the open diagonal here for Jusugi. So we have a scotch. Early exchange on d4, knight at e6. And like we saw in one of the earlier matches, the queen is very well placed here on c4. Yeah, so Mixu saying Penguin came top 10. He came in 10th place, just missing the prizes. And I hear the score lines were really close. Like, I didn't get a chance to check out the final scores, but for example, between 1st place and 10th place, were there many points between the players? Because from what I saw, there were only like 2 or 3 points between the prizes and the next placings. So it was very tightly bunched. Not like the bullet arenas where usually you see 1 or 2 players just run away with it. Like Ali Reza, for instance. So yeah, Mixu's giving a link to the tournament results. I'll just stick with the action for now. Wannabe 2700 in 300th place. And Turkmen player Fishy Vish's opponent 681st. And of course, in a 3-hour event, you know, that doesn't indicate how much time each player took part in. Right. So similar opening again to what we saw previously. This time we see the bishop coming back to d3 with a sneaky threat. Is Jusugi going to push forwards with a sack, or he's just going to step back? Whoa, knight takes f5, knight takes e7. So no pawn for g6, he's going to have to come back. And then knight at g6 check, picking up lots of material, and pawn at h7 first. And the idea is to block out the bishop and just drop a pawn here. That's why John's reinforcing this quite on e6. Wow, f4. So Jusugi really is trying to attack from all directions at the same time. Interesting way to block out the f-file, g takes. But only a queen in hand. So does Jusugi have something to worry about here on g3? I mean, it doesn't really seem like a decisive counterattack at the moment. Because John will need more than just a queen and a pawn. The king will end up being safe on h1. So bishop at g6, rook at f7. Maybe he wants to play knight d5 check. Is the king going to be safe on c8? Alright, so I think John's doing pretty well on the board. Just king b8. but he's gone for the flag. Again, there's not going to be a mate here. 1 second to 2. Probably Jisugi will take this one. Ooh, almost a mate with knight takes b5. But... Alright, exciting finish. Current scoreline is 16-7 in favor of Jisugi. Again, we see 4 in a row. That's happened a couple of times. But yeah, this long-term attacking pressure is chewing up time on the clock from Jann's perspective. So I think Jann is playing good moves, but he's just losing a couple of these tight time scrambles. Knight at g4. Hey PKR, welcome to the channel. So how do you knock away this queen? Jann's just trying to pick up the pawn. Is there a trick? Oh, he needs 2 knights here for a trick. Uh-oh, queen takes check. Maybe pawn at g3. It's not much after bishop at g1. Or knight at f3. Oh, so Jann does have a trick here, trading a knight at g5. Knight at g5. Queen takes knight takes e4. Yeah, and good defense there from Jann with the king safe back on h1. So yeah, like I was saying before, in a series, even when one side gets the better, it's actually hard to gain a lot of points. You always see the ratings tend to converge a little bit at the end when the other side wins back a few games. So it's hard to actually gain points in a match. So different move. He hasn't gone knight takes f5 this time, but it looks like a very similar line. We get this funny shape with the pawns. What do we call this? Like a tuning fork. Is it a tuning fork shape? Pawn shape? Pawn formation? Is he going to go pawn h7? Is there really any point? Is the rook useful? This is a very useful move. Bishop c4. It's probably a better way to pick up the rook. Oh, he's gone for the knight at f7 check. But yeah, it looks like knight takes d8 and there's no counterattack, so... And with a threat here, Jann's unable to pick up the knight back. And yeah, that's it. Trading queen's queen at f7, rook at g8. Yeah, so very fine attacking play there from Jisugi. Jann's going to have to repair this opening from black's perspective. The tuning fork isn't quite working. Bishop at h5, knight at d2. That looks pretty comfortable for Jisugi. I was expecting just king h8 and just play a kind of waiting move. But he's gone all in for the attack. Probably just king h1, but his knight takes d2, something serious to worry about. Because you can't take it back, then there's a bishop f3, take knight at h4 coming. Yeah, so again, it's material plus initiative. Queen e7, so unusual way to delay castling. Just inviting Jisugi to sack because otherwise, bishop g4 is going to be the next move anyway. It certainly gives white something to think about because he's either got to find some creative sacrifice or he doesn't really want to end up with a knight stuck on g7, but he also doesn't want to pull the knight back to g3, so what would Jisugi do here? Knight e7 check. Where's the follow-up? I'm not quite sure. Do you just take the material, or okay, pawn at g7, because I guess there was a queen h5 coming. What do you think is the biggest difference between their 110 game match and now? Well, I think the biggest difference is that Jann's had a lot more on his mind than just playing. I mean, he's now the main organizer. He seems to be on the forums organizing stuff all the times and sending out communications to the players. He's not been so active as a player and hasn't really had any chance to think about the match. You know, it was just a fun match, of course. Nothing at stake here. And Jasugi's just been in tremendous form against everybody. Like Katask, Oppa, JK, who else has he been playing? But I see Legion's taking a few games off Jasugi. I don't know if Legion's in the chat. Legion played some really nice games earlier this week against Jasugi. Alright, so we're going to see another... No, I mean Jasugi did very well with the bishop on h5, but he hasn't picked it up this time because we see a different move order. So, bughouse style, probably knight at f5. Nice. He's come back to centralize the knight on c6. Yeah, just giving the rook. I feel like white should be doing well here, but maybe white should just consolidate. But again, I mean, you never really feel safe against Jasugi. He's always going to find some new avenue to make you concerned about your king's safety. Yeah, do you defend with knight at e1, or but then that loses the whole rook for free. 2 rooks is enough. You can't go back because the rook at h1 check and pawn at g2. You just have to notice that you have 2 rooks to mate instead of 1. But black does need a bishop to finish off. And what's the idea of this? Oh, knight takes f3. Okay, so knight honor. Rook check. Oh, the king was coming this way. Alright, John's done pretty well to hold on with all the material. So pretty amazing, I find, that the white king is still surviving here. Because he was so stuck over on h3 a moment ago. So it's a sort of position where diagonal pieces don't do that much. The bishop here is a very good defender. But again, the time will be the deciding factor here. Yeah, just too many checks and threats of checks and accurate king walking moves needed for Jan to work out. So yeah, that's what if I played 1-0, that's what I would find most difficult. Just balancing, you know, finding the precise defensive moves and in a hurry, you know, when your opponent has a whole sequence of checks and then you've only got 5 seconds left. Yeah, it's just impossible to survive against someone like Jasugi in that sort of position. Oh, there's a bishop here, bishop at f6 threat. I don't think the counterplay is real. Yeah, it's too much. There's bishop b7, knight c6 as well. So 4 knight scotch, again with the queen on c4. Alright, so this time Jasugi's taking a fairly solid approach, collecting the pawns and driving white's pieces back slowly. We're going to see pawn at d5. Yeah. Alright, probably just bishop d6. f3, knight comes back. Or just leave it there and maybe go bishop f5. Queen h4 check first. Yeah, so this is a real pawn steamroller for Gsvc. And eventually the idea is to pick up a knight and threaten knight at f2 check. With continual threats of pushing the d pawn up the board. So Jann's in a quandary here. What does he do? He doesn't want to take e4. He doesn't want to allow the black king just to get safe and castle and bring the rooks to the center and so on, because it's so hard for white to complete his development. So yeah, that's what I was talking about. You can't take back here because of the trade and knight at f2 check. Yeah, I was expecting something like bishop at c5, but this is a more forceful way to play. Eventually castle queenside without the danger of pawn at a6. Yep, Gsvc too good. Very, very well played. Hard to really know that the moment where Jann first went wrong in that game. It's just such convincing, powerful play from Gsvc. So we had this sort of position before bishop g4 was played, and let's see if this makes a difference. Oh, hang on, just notice both queens are hanging. It's chaos on the board. Is he going to play queen takes bishop? Something was wrong with queen takes bishop, but I can't think what it was at the moment. Oh, he's trying to set up something even better. Do you go knight takes? Oh, hang on, then there's no knight at f3 check. Oh, so just queen takes queen, and then hope to survive against. I suppose the main threat would be bishop takes e6. Bishop takes c6. Okay, so then there's several points of attack. Yeah, there's also, of course, the obvious back rank weakness, which is covering. But the counter attack is quick with bishop at f3, so Gsvc does have to be careful. This is a very good move, queen at e8. Gsvc's trying a new angle, but he doesn't have another diagonal piece for g7. So JannLee suddenly taken over. Very surprising, because I thought Gsvc was doing very well earlier. Probably just take and then bishop back on f3, but as long as he keeps adding new pieces to the board, you think it would be always winning for black. Can collect the knight anytime he wants to. Yeah, should be it, but unfortunately the time again for Jann. It's a real shame, because Jann did so well to come back into this game. I mean, I say it's a shame, but you know, they're not playing a CWC match for prize money or anything. I see a retarded platypus in the chat, in the game chat rather. So we have 28 spectators in the game chat. Alright, so we have something similar, but this time the queen's gone over to a4 check. And of course you often see bishop d7 in that case, but Gsvc's keeping his options open. Keeping the d file for the queen, keeping the bishop open. Not hitting the white queen directly. Alright, and again, very often in these openings we're seeing Jann not castle and not really able to castle. And many times it has worked well in Gsvc's favor. So Gsvc's the one with the tempo here. He's threatening on f3 as well as the obvious d1 and e2 with the queen drop. Yeah, and another tempo move, bishop g4, knight takes e2. I think this is too much to bear. So just, yeah, it's first-rate attacking play from Jisugi. And we see JannLee inviting the same sort of position as before. I'm not sure whether he'd repeat the exact line because it did look good for Jisugi, but this is one of the rare opportunities where Jan has actually had to castle and, yeah, achieve some relative sort of safety. Often here you see queen sacks on f6, and then it works well when black only has a queen in defense, because then usually black will have to throw back the queen immediately. And white can keep piling up the minor pieces on f6, which you see him doing here anyway. Oh, nice move bishop at h5. How does this work? Are we going to see a queen sack on g4? No, preserving, well, not really preserving the queen, but trying to make this bishop not really an effective attacking piece at the moment. It's more useful in defense to stop knight at e2. Alright, so it's still a bit unclear. I mean, Jan seems to be doing pretty well on the clock and on the board. So I'd take black here. Yeah, the rook's not really important. Oh, it's a good move though. Are we going to see a sack and then knight at... Yeah, so two pieces covering f6, so there's knight at f6 mates. Jisugi's dropped the queen on g4 to defend. Let's go... Oh, hang on. Ooh, this is a good move because it does win a piece on back on h5. Knight returns to defend. And still a bit unclear who is better, because Jisugi's again has returned the queen to defend. And now just Jan does look, he's got the decisive material edge. Yeah, and it's too much. So 4 seconds versus 3. Of course, you don't often see Jisugi resign, but he decided not to go for the flag that time. That was too much. So well played, Jan. Now we're going to see this funny pawn at d6 move. No, Jisugi hasn't gone. Oh, he hasn't gone for the knight at h4. So queen on a4, pawn drop, which means there's no pawn at h3. And Jan feels like it's safe to castle, but yeah, I mean, this is the disadvantage of queen a4, that it tends to get stuck out of play over here. He's going to have to throw the queen. I'm looking at moves like knight takes e4 and bishop. I wonder if that allows too much counterattack though. So Jisugi's just playing this very calmly and trying to collect as much material as he can. And trying to stop any counterattack via pawn at h6. Jisugi's trying to get bishop takes e3 to work, but not sure. So this is a much better way to proceed, because now it's just impossible to drive the queen away from f3. Here we go, knight at h4 check. Queen at g2, knight at f3. Is there a mate? Feels very matey. Alright, Jan's gone back to the perk. And we see bishop d7 and knight backwards this time instead of knight to h5. So yeah, you'd expect e6 to be pretty much forced to prevent the attack on f7. But what next? Actually, f4 is the first move I looked at. Hello, Chess Maria. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, I guess f4, the drawback is that you're weakening g3 too much after the trade of pawns. So Jisugi's taken a more restrictive approach. Just trying to keep the black pieces contained. But he's not finding a way to attack directly against JannLee's king. Funny move, knight to h1. So yeah, and JannLee's done really well to press back Jisugi's attack. Still, I mean, I don't think either side has any real advantage. This means it's just going to be harder to get in the move. Pawn at G3. Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, when I was a junior, like more than 20 years ago, I was a funny mate on H2. There was a junior player, you know, about when we were about 13 or 14 years old, and really nothing was known very much about Bughouse or Crazyhouse. And we were playing a Bughouse game, and this move, like Knight H1, appeared on the board, and he just laughed at his Bughouse partner. He said, "That's the worst move I've ever seen in my life." And, well, I guess we saw the weakness in that game with pawn at H2 mate, but when Jisugi played it, I didn't feel like it was so bad. It did slow down Jan's counter-attack via pawn at G3. So, what do we have here? It's more about who's attacking first. When these diagonals here are open on H3 and H6. Who's got the first tempo? This is what the game revolves around. I'm sure Jisugi wants to sack twice on F3. So that's why Jan needs to drop a piece to defend the square F3. Notice the bishop here also stopping knight at E2 check. So yeah, we see a big pile up around the square F3. No sacrifices yet, but it's only a matter of time. I wonder if Jisugi has this radical idea of queen takes D1, removing the defender. Not just yet. Okay, where's the attack? Where's the attack? Bishop takes and pawn at H2. It's not really a lot, so he's just going to keep piling up here. Knight at D2. What about bishop takes? Oh, was this Jisugi's idea to defend with the queen takes E7? Yeah, still no decisive attack, but it seems that Jan has taken over the upper hand with moves like F6 coming. Here we go, bishop at, knight at F5 looks... Oh, hang on, what was there? Queen takes and queen's guarding G7. Alright, it's a bit random with 1 and 3 seconds left. But yeah, again, one of these unfortunate cases for Jan that he's just losing the time scrambles in the last couple of seconds, but he did so well to defend and to stop. I mean, how many players in the world would have defended that position in 1-0 and not let Jisugi when he was threatening all these sacrifices? And Tysley says, I think E4 A6 is still the worst opening I've ever seen, even though he somehow gets good positions all the time. Nah, I mean, I've looked into it a little bit. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. Chicken does it as well, E4, A6. And he gets decent positions. It's, in my opinion, it's maybe 10% less playable than most other openings as black against E4. And Oppa, after the move order E4, A6, knight C3, I've seen Oppa even do D5 anyway, and just go knight takes D5 and continue knight F6. Just treat it as a gambit. And again, I don't think that's the worst opening. Four knights for Jisugi. Is it an actual mate threat to go queen takes G7? Jan's defending with picking up the queen at the same time. Rook G1, good move. But yeah, also a good move to block the file to threaten bishop F1 mate. Probably king takes and something at G6. No, I mean, this is fine too. Take everything? Oh, there's check here, I see. Oh, hang on, you have to take the bishop, but then was there some tricky sequence of checks? But then rook takes... Hang on, bishop G2 is check. Maybe that was okay to allow G takes F4 because he had a counter check with bishop G2. Entire sleeves asking e4, a6, knight c3, d5, e takes d5, e6. Yeah, that's the basic idea. Treat it as a gambit. And if white does accept the pawns, then yeah, I mean, okay, obviously white's gonna be objectively better, but at least the black pieces are active, and the king's not gonna run into terrible trouble like in some of the e4, e5 openings. Alright, can Jan survive with this big gaping hole on g2? Let's see. Pawn at g2 looks interesting. Jisugi's taken a more forceful approach. Yeah, it's a very nice move because there will be a knight at f4 fork sooner or later. And I don't think there's a good response to this, so he will have to throw the queen and just hope to defend. But you can't even play bishop at g2 because of a queen at g1 mate and some other mate here. Queen g4 doesn't work, not just yet. So yeah, just deflecting the rook off the first rank. Is queen h3 enough, or is the king getting away? What's the most accurate way to continue? Knight back to g4? Yeah, I mean, I don't think John's going to survive in the long term, but at least he's still alive. He's always got a chance if there's less than 10 seconds left on the clock. But yeah, how do you stop this and threats on g2 together? Okay, there's always queen takes g5 with the king on f2. Yeah, so pins everywhere. So pin there. So knights, even with the king going to across to e2, the knight was still pinned. So the last 6 games, they've gone 3-0. Just when Jisugi gets on a tear, you know, when he wins a few games in a row, he's just unstoppable. So he had something similar before. I think it was slightly different because I don't remember the pawn takes knight being an option. So Jan wants time for knight at g5. Oh yeah, it's these e4, e5 openings. It's really all about who can get in first, even at the cost of a queen. I mean, here there's something very specific. Otherwise, black's queen is in a menacing position. But yeah, with the king sitting out here, there's no chance to survive. Knight at d5, m1, says Katask. Even better than knight at f5 winning the queen. Alright, so g6, knight f6, knight d4. We're probably just going to see a move like knight c3 and then bishop takes back. I can't draw straight lines, but you know what I mean. So certainly in chess this would be good for black because then there's no way to keep the bishop on f7. But in Crazyhouse, it can certainly be worth sacrificing a queen for this long-term pressure. The king on e7 is never going to feel safe. Alright, he's dropped the queen straight away. So I wonder if he's going to steal a pawn on c2. Or is that too much? I'll probably leave the queen there. Oh no, he's going to come back to e8. But then... Okay, knight takes e5 check. Is the biggest worry, I think. Oh no, there's knight g5 as well. Yeah, how do you defend? You just have to allow knight takes e5 check. Yeah, and then king g8. So f7, knight f6 check does not quite work. Yeah, too many queens. Yeah, so I'm not sure about the early queen drop on f5, but it's not the sort of position I'd like to play in 1-0 as black against Jasugi. You give me any other position than that. I think it's also a Fumitok specialty, isn't it? Just leaving the queen hanging there and then using the minor pieces to attack. Alright, b4, something very unusual. Jan's just going to go for it, or is he going to defend or go for material? Would you bother picking up the rook? Probably not just at the moment. Attack here. So both rooks are hanging, but as long as you're covering squares like g2 and h3, I think white should be fine. King safe on h1. Yeah, slowly Jan can generate some threats via rook at e1. Oh yeah, long diagonal. I think Jasugi's missed this one. And then shall I just rook at e1? Probably just defend with the bishops. Rook at e1 back. Yeah, the pieces here. Keep the black king safe forever. And there's no way in the world Jan could ever lose this one. Just start dropping the pawns. Pawn here, pawn here. Yeah, that's it. So, for there, the move order was important for Jan because I think he took the rook at the right time and then he played knight f3 and then had the bishop covering. And it was also important to preserve the queen with queen e7 and then he was just covering himself in every direction. Right, so what's Jasugi's strategy here? Just firstly to avoid knight at f5 and then to defend the dark squares as well. So I guess it's an admission that the king d2 is pretty solid. It's hard to crack into this. I don't know whether you call it a fortress, but a very open. It's a very open castle anyway around the king. A very spacious castle. Not exactly like Fort Knox, but you know. Still hard to find a real way in to the white king. So we see Jasugi defending with his bishops. He doesn't mind a trade here, just bringing the knight closer. And the queen's here again, a bit like the previous game where Jasugi had white, or was it 3 games ago? And in this sort of position, the queens, they're only really stopping the immediate mates, but they're not stopping black just keeping on putting on pawns and pieces and piling up an attack. So it's really only about short-term survival. I think Jan's only chance is on the clock. Any direct threats? 95 was maybe missed. Alright, going for the flag. No mates. I wonder if Katas can find another mate in one. So Jan seems to have about 3 openings that he keeps on oscillating between. Queen e7 without castling being one of them. So this went last time with knight at g5, but it didn't work out well for Jan because there was a really nice queen sack. Queen takes f7. So I guess he's pausing here to look for a better move than knight takes f7, but it's such a forcing position. There's unlikely to be improvements on knight takes queen. But it's more about Jasugi finding the mate in one this time. No, I think Jan might even resign this one because, yeah, we've already had this game with knight takes and knight e6 and knight at f5 was played. But yeah, it seems to be nothing here for black to survive. So Jan's saying in the chat, baby duties. Yeah, I mean, of course, when Jan stops for 30 seconds, it's always likely. So GG's, very well played Jasugi, 29 games to 14. And who can stop Jasugi in 1-0? Maybe Katask. I don't know if we're going to continue for now. But we've got another CWC match in about 1 hour. But it's already been quite a long stream, about 3 hours. I haven't had something to eat or drink. I heard some advice. It's good to sip some warm water every 20 minutes just to wash the liquid down into your stomach. So probably a good idea to stop here and take a little break. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope to be covering some more CWC matches. It really depends on the schedule, and of course this is my weekend. It's about midday Sunday in Sydney, Australia time, which is a good time for me. Now I still have to organize matches with JK and Jasugi in the 960 league. It's getting a bit late, but I think if we leave it too much longer, then we're going to be wrapped up in the CWC. So I would still like to play the matches if JK and Jasugi have a chance. Even just 2 games, 4 games, doesn't matter. I'm open to whatever the guys can do. Yeah, JK was challenging me 1-2 Crazyhouse on lichess before, but this was only meant to be a commentary stream, but I would like to get that 960 league match out of the way. So this was just a repeat. Yeah, it was a repeat Legion of 4 games ago. And I don't think there's any improvements to knight takes queen, but it's just a mate in 2 with knight at d5 at the end. Yeah, I mean something like knight at f3 check to survive, but it's only going to be in the short term. So let's just quickly go back to the upcoming matches, refresh the page to see if there's any more being added. Put myself back over here. Yeah, so next one coming up in about, it's 2 hours time. So we have Shabrat versus Jasonic. And Monday 4:30, not such a good time for me. Maybe Monday 7 AM. We got to Pawn in Training versus Lucas Schacht. And I think this is actually my next opponent, or my first opponent I should say. Dri Boss, one of the qualifiers, and I am Lapis. I'm not sure whether I am Lapis is a real I am, but they're 2 of the players ranked about 120 or 130. So just coming back to the knockout bracket. A quick recap of today so far. We had Clearcast defeating Jeffrey the Jesus Man 10 games to 0, and Clearcast would have streamed that, and that would have been very early my time, about 4 AM this morning. And I covered the match between mathace and lawlz, which mathace took down 6 games to 1. He may end up taking on the Lone Wolf, and then the winner most likely to match up against Jasugi in round 3. And we also had the match between GSVC and Mauriccious. And GSVC took that 7 games to 1. Round 2, he will face either OK or a random 10-04. So stay tuned for more action. And thanks for watching. Thanks for playing the match, guys. Jasugi and Jen, always fun to watch and to commentate. So I'll be online sometime today. So take care, stay safe. As always, have a good weekend. See you soon.